today's rapid fire debate, we're exploring how CPG, FMCG, and retailer companies take the plunge into direct-to-consumer e-commerce. So I'm joined on stage by Ashwani Nath, Global Head of E-Channel Solutions for Geodis, and Kelly Lees, CEO of Mary Mary. Welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe just give a quick overview to everyone, sort of what you do.
Sure.
Who you are.
Thank you. This feels a little overkill.
We're being televised, so it's fine.
Thank you very much. I'm Kelly Lees. I run a company called Mary Mary, and we sell luxury party supplies and kids products. We're a U.S. company that also has a base in the U.K. And the company's been around about 30 plus years. It's still founder owned and operated, and it's always been a wholesale company until about 2 years ago, hence why I am on the stage here.
Exactly.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Nathan. So I represent Geodis. We are traditionally a 2-3PL logistics provider, but more recently we've been listening to the vision of brands in the market and what their pain points and visions are. And again, today morning, we had an interesting masterclass, if you heard. So when a brand's actually going D2C, the pain that we've been hearing from the brands is around, can we move away, hopefully, from a dependent model to a direct model where we have more control over the e-shopper's behavior and experience? Maybe can we save some sales commission on the way because we go direct, we have our own CRM, helps us to do forecasting. And in doing all this, the biggest challenge in this pain point was, and again, as mentioned by some of you in the morning, was the personalized customer experience. So the customer looking for reliable, flexible, on-time delivery, and that's very easy to say that, but behind that, there is a complete requirement of network of warehouses or e-fulfillment warehouses, where you have to position your stock as close to the final e-shopper as possible. And beside the e-fulfillment warehouses, you need your last mile and the whole digital order orchestration piece. So the thing was, is there someone who can actually help brands go omni-channel, plug and play in a matter of weeks? And that's exactly what we put together as a solution.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll throw the first question to Kelly. So your business, as you mentioned, was wholesale for 30 plus years. So more recently, we were talking about this morning, you've changed to a more omni-channel D2C model to complement your wholesale. That must add some challenges, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of challenges. Many of them are logistics challenges. A lot of them are sort of internally developing the skill sets that you need. I think that, one of the things when we were prepping for this meeting, we were sort of debating a little bit about, going really from wholesale to just direct to consumer. And I think that for us, what we see is we basically want to be where the consumer is. So we don't see it as an either or, wholesale or direct to consumer. I think also the nature of our product is that it's really kind of an impulse purchase. Like very few people go into a store thinking, oh, I want this really cute cupcake kit, but you see it. And if you know it and you like it, you know what I'm talking about, for those of you that don't. And the serendipity that occurs in that offline shopping experience is something that is why we're very popular with wholesale customers and will always be in that environment. But certainly, that big challenge is that allocation of your inventory, as you've discussed, and, the science behind that real-time allocation, which that's a huge challenge, and understanding how to bring that know-how in-house.
Yeah. And it is a science, isn't it? Like being able to understand where you've got to have stock sitting, the quantities you need, different things like that.
One of my favorite classes when I was in graduate school was OPIM, which is, operations, management and thinking about the function behind everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is sort of the epitome of that.
Very cool, very cool. Just to the audience here, interested to see who does direct-to-consumer at the moment. Can I just have a show of hands of companies that are doing that? Yeah. And everyone else assumes wholesale, so that's cool. So
there's some digitally which
there might be. We can't see, but they might call in. I've got a phone if they need to, so that's fine. So just ask you a question around D2C. So you mentioned the personalisation aspect, and that's so important for direct to consumer. What has Geodis done in terms of this, and how have you adapted your offering in the last say couple of years to meet that personalisation challenge?
Yes, we've already been doing a lot of e-commerce at parcel level, physically, both warehousing and last mile. But the element we brought in is a digital piece. And, you alluded to the part about the science in the background. So what we are able to do, if I take an example, if one of you goes and orders, say, a T-shirt size 36 or blue color, and on the website of the brand, two things kick in: save the sale and availability to promise. So the moment you're on the site, it'll say that the blue color size 36 that you wanted can be delivered to you maybe in 5 days. But they don't know behind that the product is still with the supplier in Portugal and it's on the way in transit. But if you want a red color size 36, we can give it to you today because it's probably being pulled from the store. Or if you want a yellow one, I can give it to you in 1 day because it's going to come from the nearest DC. Also, along with this comes a question that you may want with the T-shirt to buy a tie, or you want to buy a belt, or combine these, which are coming from different e-fulfillment locations. So the science we have created is that helping a brand to identify where that product is available and where to fulfill it from, and which last mile carrier to use to make sure that you deliver your promise in the promised window to the e-shopper. Now that's huge. This is something which goes beyond NPS or Net Promoter Score. Because your customer is not only identifying the product he or she wants to buy, but they're actually able to understand how can that product be made available to them. Yeah, that makes sense? Yeah,
totally. Just to change topics for a sec. So, Mary, you mentioned single operation in the US. I think you said Reno before. Is that correct?
We got a DC in Reno and a DC in the UK.
Yeah, and the UK one. Yeah, of course. I guess fulfillment by Amazon has conditioned everyone's mind in the last 10 years that you've got to have a warehouse within a kilometre from every client, and they had that thing. And but there's still a lot of business like yourself for maintaining an operation, which is a lot easier to maintain when you've got a brand. How have you seen challenges with that, like from a wholesale point of view, dealing with customers who may be now thinking, you can ship things all over the place very quickly, and coming to the UK, obviously, where the shipping conditions are a bit different. How have you sort of experienced that?
I'm not sure I totally understand. So what you're talking about is the from a wholesale perspective.
Yes.
We have distributors, say, for example, throughout Europe. And what are the challenges that we're facing?
The challenges just to compare, like when you're going to direct to consumer now, and you're sort of competing. Well, you obviously work with Amazon, but you're competing against Amazon in many aspects, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, we sell our product on Amazon, so we'll range our product on Amazon. So in terms of that and our e-com, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, channels, channels.
I think the key is actually ranging your product. So we've got 2,700 SKUs.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's probably, that's the thing that companies will typically kind of stumble over for a while before they realize, just as in the offline world, there's a product that a range you're going to range at Nordstrom's, and then there's a range that you're going to range at, a discount.
Yes.
So you kind of look at that. And so for us, I think that is, I think the challenge is probably everybody has sort of stumbled into marketplaces over the last couple of years. I think what's going to be interesting to see is that since COVID, many of our wholesale customers have gone online.
Yeah.
And as we all know, is that it is easy to start a Shopify store, but to drive traffic to your store, to handle that fulfillment, the cost of distribution is really expensive. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens to those smaller shops on the high street that sort of popped on and were successful, while everything was was closed. And so that's also something for us to keep an eye on, which is that movement of our wholesale customers to online.
Definitely. And do you think any of your current customers might become competitors because you've been so successful? Do you think that pops up? Is it in your mind when you're sitting down?
I think that there's always a tension. I think that there's always that sort of tension as you sort of recalibrate and potentially competing against each other. And as I said, I think that, I don't have a magic ball that can kind of say how things are going to look a year from now. I think, this last year has just completely changed the high street in every country I've been in what little I've been able to travel the last 2 years. What's really exciting to see is just the new brands that are coming out that really have been able to be successful online, that are now taking advantage of cheap retail space.
Yes. Yeah.
So, there's so many exciting things. So, to answer your question about conflict between our wholesale customers, I think there's a lot of space for us. There's one thing that is for sure is that it doesn't matter what happens with technology or the environment or the future, people will always celebrate. They will always celebrate, and they will always give gifts of some sort. So, there's always a place for that.
Keeps you relevant. Cool. And just touching on, Kelly touched on, obviously COVID in the last year. Now, Geodis has just launched a new D2C offering to the market. Coming out of what has been a very challenging 18 months, what sort of drove you as a business to think this was the right time to do that?
Well, honestly, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. We started developing our vision about 3 years ago, and we frankly didn't expect Corona to happen, but it's been a boom to us.
Yeah.
But to your point, what we have seen as trends is very interesting. Digitally native brands, startups are really the people who are looking for good plug-and-play, immediate solutions. Cost is a big driver for them. And online sales depends on a lot of other factors like good returns, which creates maybe a 3 times more sales by the customer. But also, what we have found is that very large corporate FMCG businesses, we heard Kelly on retail, but on FMCG, we come across brands like Reckitt's and Colgate's and Nestle and Nespresso. Now, their e-commerce is not very big. They're doing anything between 30 to 50,000 orders a month.
Yeah.
So when they've gone to large 3PL companies, which includes us as 3PL, they find that the 3PL companies find them too small. 30, 50,000 orders. No, we want 10,000 square meters.
Yeah.
On the converse, when they've gone to very nice new players in the market like Cuban, Hubo, Aravato, or Active Ants, they find there are 1 warehouse or 2 warehouse companies, whereas what they're looking for is a network. So we are lucky that we positioned ourselves with the vision of the brands, wanting to go D2C, whether it's small or big, that we can take a customer which has only 10,000 or 5,000 or 50 orders a day, I don't care, and still give them the Geodis network of last mile fulfillment in Europe and US.
Yeah.
So we were having a chat with Kelly earlier in the day. She says she has a DC in Remo. We said, listen, rather than do 2 weeks across the US, we can position your inventory in East Coast, in Nashville, in Dallas, and you can fulfill the same day and next day. So it's just how flexible and how agile we could make brands go plug and play within a matter of weeks. Yeah.
Excellent. And Kelly, just being a US brand, obviously been around for 3 decades now, coming to Europe and obviously launching in Europe. When did you launch the UK operation?
We're in 49 countries. So,
okay.
We're in
you're facilitating today.
And we have been, we've been selling in UK and the EU since around 2009.
Okay, cool.
And I think probably most of our distributors and stuff probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I'm looking at Lee over there, who's been here longer than I have. So, So, that, and that was there was, really immediate uptake. I mean, we are in this, a fortunate position, but an unfortunate position insofar as we just haven't been able to satisfy demand, from an inventory perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that Brexit has obviously kind of posed just excruciating challenges for all of us because we are a U.S. company shipping out of the U.K.
Yeah.
And so, that's been a big problem for us this year.
Yeah.
So, we just finally got our VAT number last week.
There you go.
Last week.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, we're seeing a lot of the customers we're talking to are having the same issues. It's been a challenging year. Like, I think Brexit would have been tough enough as it was, but you throw in pandemic and then you throw in obviously all the VAT changes and everything else. It's certainly been challenging. So.
Well, and I think the other thing too is just that, and I think why what you're offering is is really valuable is that. Each country is very different in terms of just how they like to collect packages, how they like to pay for packages. And so there isn't really a one-size-fits-all solution for all of Europe.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that it's very easy for people to think that. But in practicalities, you can't really optimize your sale without understanding just those nuances.
Definitely. And then we work with a cross-border dues and taxes business that does a lot of the compliance work and all that, and they have never been busier than they have been in the last 6 months. So absolutely, yeah. Very good. Based somewhat locally in Belgium and the UK. So just in regards to the visibility, because you mentioned around visibility of stock, I think that's the biggest challenge people have, certainly with, direct to consumer. I think, when you're doing wholesale, everyone is pretty consistent on what you're getting, whereas D2C can be quite, I guess, one day you've got 10,000 orders, next day you've got, 50,000 orders type of thing. How have you addressed it, obviously, in your offering now with the visibility of stock and avoiding those issues for people?
Yeah, so we realized right at the start that this is a very critical piece, that we need to provide one single real-time inventory view across multiple storage locations for the brand.
Yeah.
So it could be your own operated DC or third-party DC, the locations that you store with us. You could have stock in stores. Earlier today morning, we had a speaker who mentioned about the Canada Goose experience and stores getting to be more experience centers, where the shipment actually being sent from the warehouse and no longer being activated from the store.
Yeah.
Do I think Pudo will stay? So in all these environments, we brought on board what we call an omni-channel order management system, which is the digital brains behind the whole ecosystem, if I was to call it. And this we brought on board by one of the leading Gartner number one, IBM. And what we've done is we integrated this whole distribution omni-channel order management system into our own platform, into our own middleware. Which means if a brand was to go to any of these providers, and there are many of them, you could go to Manhattan, Oracle, IBM, or many others for DMS, the brand's journey could take you anything between 12 to 18 months to integrate such a system. There's a lot of resources being thrown, there's cost, and then there's a high transaction cost. But in our case, since we've already integrated the model, it's become even more plug and play for any brand. And the moment you sign up with us, if, say, for example, you're on Shopify, we connect you within 2 days. And after that, it's a matter of 7 to 10 days, depending on the inventory you have to update our own WMS and physically get the inventory in the store. And we can actually get you up and running in 2 weeks because all the last mile carriers have been pre-integrated with us, both for the delivery and for returns. So what you're getting is a complete digital visibility package where the visibility comes to you when suppose an order drops in a cart. The moment the order in a cart drops with us and you, we are giving you visibility not just on the last mile track and trace. We can actually give you visibility as to where that parcel is being pulled out of. So you'll see it being pulled out of the warehouse. you'll see it being packed, and then you start the track and trace experience. So the visibility tools we have created in dashboards are so aligned that your machine learning or analytics eventually, based on your sales data, can help us even give a brand's very smart forecasting for the future. So we'll actually be able to guide the brands as to how much inventory or how much count of which SKU they should place in which location in the future. Now, this is huge because this will eventually affect your work in process. This will even affect your inventory carrying cost. It'll affect your working capital optimization. And if I have to really go back, it can even affect your raw material and manufacturing processes because you have the right piece or the right SKU in the right location in future. So it's a huge ecosystem of digital which has been enabled and literally cutting it down from an 18-month period to a matter of weeks.
Definitely. It's funny. So across today, obviously, all the talks, there's still a lot of retailers doing manual. There's still ones using Excel spreadsheets, for very large orders. And then you've got people who have put in full operations. And the last presentation was robotics, automated robotics in warehouses. So I think it's, even though there's a lot of options out there, I think people are still finding their way. So I think that's it's horses for courses, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you start a company and immediately you go full automation and this is how it works.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, everybody wants to sort of add AI to whatever their solution is. But the bottom line is that, that kind of human intervention is ultimately important. And, particularly if you're in a product or a brand or an area that's about trend and it's about trend setting.
Yeah.
Because, Amazon can do a great algorithm about the best black t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to find, they're never going to be good at finding what is the next best thing.
No.
And so I think that that's kind of one of the things that we debate internally, which is, I've inherited an incredibly analog business. And, how buying and inventory planning is done, on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a bit of science to be added to that, particularly as you start going into direct to consumer, because you now own that inventory. So, now are responsible for weeks on hand. So no, it's not just the shipment's late and one of your wholesale customers is upset at you. It's like, now those products are going to be 2 weeks late, and that's 2 weeks of sales we don't have coming in. So like that mindset, bringing that internal.
It's very different, isn't it?
Super, super different.
Yeah.
We are definitely not there yet.
Yeah.
And that there is a science to, and there is an algorithm, that you can model.
Yeah.
But, whether that new, pink ruffle rainbow dress up is going to totally sell out, you don't know.
No.
You don't know. And when it does, the first person I go to is our inventory. You didn't buy enough. I was like, why don't we have 100,000
of these things?
Exactly. You didn't buy enough. So yeah.
And something just came to mind because I've been in e-commerce a long time, is the impact, as you've just said, around now that you've got consumers. Like when you're dealing with wholesalers, everything's over email and phone, fax as it used to be, and you'd manage it. But now you don't have that, right? You've got the consumer, and the consumer can now go on social media. They can go on Twitter. For a brand such as yours, I'd imagine you've got probably somewhat a cult following amongst various parties, and if someone's upset, they come at you. Like, is that something you considered? Obviously, when you went direct to consumer, that suddenly you've now got a public persona that you've got to keep up?
I think if anything, that is probably what drove us to be going to direct to consumer, because we do have such a passionate audience and we've never really engaged and leveraged that.
Yeah.
And so touch wood, thus far, that's worked to our advantage.
Excellent.
And, but that's why we're being very, very careful about how we develop and grow the brand, because it's a slippery slope of exploiting that.
Yeah.
And then you really sort of lose that love So, and that's also why it's really important for us to truly be omni-channel, because, there are some independent retailers or larger retailers or sort of prestige retailers that reach a customer that we'll never reach.
Yeah.
And we also, and there are places that our core customers love to shop. And so we want them to find us there.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, very good. Just changing tones a bit. We spoke today around same day couriers, etc. How are you finding, like, synonymous with direct to consumer seems to be the rise of same day, and there's a lot of same day providers here, and they're all a lot of investment going into the networks for same day. They're very much a PE and VC favorites at the moment. How do you see the same day and having to have things in 2 minutes? It's got down to 10 minutes now. Gorillas and that. It's we order and in 10 minutes time I'll have what I ordered. Like, have we got to that stage, or is it just overkill and it sort of slips back to a full same day?
Yeah, I think the brand's in a better position to answer that. But from our perspective and from what we have heard as a feedback, we find that the e-shopper is actually looking more for reliability, honest information on when the parcel is actually going to be delivered, even if it's delayed. And they're looking for flexibility in the sense if they can choose a location or timing or date of delivery. So to me, these three factors are more key than, and of course, combined with returns and parcel point delivery for returns, these factors are more key than just the speed of delivery.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, Nathan, to your point, to be honest, we have had a lot of demands from brands who say, even though we don't have enough picks in a day, we have very few orders, we want to cater to e-shoppers who have dropped orders on our website even till 11 o'clock at night or midnight, and we expect them to be filled the next day, which is really same day because it's looking at midnight.
Yeah, it's not easy.
and it could be from Venlo to Belgium. Yeah. But whether you call it science or whether you call it the physical attributes, this is just not available. Yeah. We have some very, very nice companies outside. But even if you ask them, will you do a pickup from a warehouse in Venlo at midnight and deliver the next day? No, they cannot. Yep. So my team, what they've done is they've developed solutions where we established our own middle mile to feed, say, the last mile carrier in Brussels or the last mile carrier in France overnight. Okay, yep. Because we have got consolidated loads. So we inject into the last mile carrier early morning and we actually create the last mile.
Yeah.
So we're trying to devise and innovate solutions based on what the brands want. But I think this is more a space where the brands are trying to compete with each other into offering a better and better solution. But whether the e-shopper needs that, I would leave that as an open question mark.
Yeah. And we were saying, like, the US has a very different attitude to this. Like, Europe's so focused same day and things have to, but like the most successful 3 carriers in the US don't really have that offer. If they do, it's very expensive.
Oh my God, I was dying this summer. I was on, I was back in the States after 18 months, and I was staying sort of outside the Boston area on the coast. And I ordered something, and I swear I ordered express shipping, and it arrived 12 days later. I mean, I could not believe it, because in London, we can get, the post office is next day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's first class, right? So you're used to that. So I think that, if you're in a major metropolitan area in the United States, then, there's probably a handful where Amazon, you can get that delivery. I think that this kind of like last mile, as you said, like it's a very sexy, trendy topic to kind of like jump into. But, in large part, a lot of that last mile depends on slave labor, basically. And what we're seeing right now is people don't want to take those jobs. That's why we've got all this. This is why we've got a driver shortage, across the board in the United States and in Europe. So I think that's one thing is just the practicality of that. I think there will be an energy tax on things like this, because as we become more environmentally aware, the more you're putting pressure into the system. Yeah. That is, that there's a impact on that. for us as a business, do I want Lee to make sure that our customers get their stuff as soon as possible? I do. And I think what you said, Ash, is that, it's largely a function of the competition in the market. So, we don't compete with Party City because they're just a big bulge bracket kind of thing. But if you look at their offering, it was really astounding in the United States because they are online and offline retailers, big, Party Depot type thing. But it starts with, what is the date of your event, right? Because people have a date. Like, our product is perishable. Yeah. So
if it gets a day late,
you miss the kids' birthday.
You miss the kids or Halloween or
exactly.
whatever.
You've missed it. So I think that is why being able to get next day is super important, because if you're a parent like I am, it's usually the night before where you're like, shit, I didn't get the unicorn pinata. I need to get that. My daughter's not going to have a good party. So I think it's that kind of perishability, that's important in really thinking about that.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to have my DC bend over backwards and kill themselves. Like, literally, challenge their mental health just so that somebody can get stuff.
Yeah. A day early, as you said. If they need it in a week, they don't need it in an hour.
Yeah. So I think that is, these are management decisions that you have to make, and you have to be realistic about what you can do. But I would like to be able to kind of make sure that we had that information about when people ultimately needed it.
Yeah.
And I think what Ash said in terms of, people don't care if it's going to be late or if it's going to be 3 days. They just want to know exactly when it's coming. Yeah. And, I love in the in the UK, we've got great delivery that you get the window. It's going to be, I get a text message. Yeah. This is coming today between, 1 and 2. Yeah.
And you make sure you're there, and if you need it, otherwise it gets delivered. So, I think that's important. And look, my background was building tech which connected retailers and carriers, and we introduced time slots, which was the first time we introduced, delivery, lifestyle choice. So you could basically say, well, I want to deliver to a locker, I want to deliver to a pickup point. And I think that's where we were going, and now it's gone completely the opposite. Like, people have gone absolutely over the top with it. But if you give people options, the customer service goes down because people will pick the option that suits them. So I think it just comes down to delivery choices. So I think I haven't heard the words delivery choices at this event yet, which maybe in one of the other ones, but that used to be the buzzwords all the time. So I think that's...
Add to this, Nathan, sorry. Just to add to this, sustainability is becoming key for us. So it's not just about EV vehicles and local cycle deliveries. We have to all go a further step. So today what happens traditionally is, if you have a parcel to be delivered from a DC in Venlo or Berlin or wherever you're located, say to Milan, you'll end up paying about €11 a kilo, because a DPD or Colosimo or DHL or whoever is carrying it all the way from Venlo to Milan. But what you need to do is, you need to build a sustainable middle mile, as we call it. So we need to create a replenishment from Venlo to the EFC in Milan. We're using an LTL or FTL mode, where you end up paying, say, just about €1 a kilo. Yep. And then you trigger the last mile with a local champion for maybe €3.50, €4 or whatever. So you end up at a cost of €5. Can you believe it? As a brand, if you save €6 a kilo, plus you don't have to wait for 5 days for your parcel to travel from Venlo to Milan.
Yep.
Okay, you're going to trigger that same day delivery and next day delivery. The sustainability piece also comes in creating that middle mile, because you're not just carrying 2-3 parcels in a truck. You're now consolidated the load, and you're controlling the carbon emissions or whatever.
Yeah.
So it may sound far-fetched, but it's reality.
Yeah,
the more you consolidate.
Exactly, and that orchestration or the collaboration aspect of consolidating, it's... I know carriers that have tried it, trying to consolidate customers, and it always breaks for whatever reason. Normally it's demands from the customers, but I think we need to move towards that, right? And we'll talk about sustainability, and we'll, take everything out of it. And then, as you say, we throw a pallet onto a truck and send it, 2 countries across with one pallet. It's kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah.
But, it is interesting when you think about like Ocado's model,
Yes.
Right, where you talk about delivery choices, and you're buying your slot.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So
it's auctioned, especially during the pandemic. It was very
exactly. And
hotspot.
it's interesting because if you think about it, there's nothing else that I buy by appointment.
Yeah.
Right. If I went on to Amazon and they first asked me, well, when do you want this delivered, and then you can place your order. So I think that's interesting. Well, when I was back in the States, I thought what was interesting too. So our return rate is like 1 or 2%. So that's very enviable. I know for most, for most
especially
brands.
the fashion ones.
Fashion, exactly. So, but I had Nordstrom's now has like these little sort of, I forgot what they're called. Do you know what they're called? But anyway, they're like little teeny weeny kind of like pickup places on high streets or
like
main streets.
Pudo points sort of thing, like collection points.
Yeah, but what they're doing is it's like, you can do alterations there. You
like
could try something
like a pop-up sort of.
But it's very small. They're like, it's like the size of a dry cleaner.
Yeah.
But it's actually really perfect, right? Because it's close enough to home so you don't have to schlep to a mall.
Yeah.
But then also it allows you that opportunity to like order like 5 sizes. You can try it on there, So I know this isn't unique, but it was just interesting to sort of see it in action. And so, I do think, and I think too, I could see there being a point where we do really understand where our inventory is. So we could say, we can't get this to you today, but Bonjour Fête carries this, and they're right down the street from you.
Yeah.
So
that's powerful. Being able to respond.
Yeah, and our wholesalers would love that.
Of course,
right?
of course.
So.
Yeah, that does happen. I've a couple of clients we've dealt with had that level of thing. So that's very cool. So we're sort of coming up to the time. So I just wanted to throw it out to the audience if there was any questions to ask in regards to direct to consumer, or any stories that you've got around challenges you've had or anything. No? End of day? Yes? Go, mate. Let's do it. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but why not?
Slightly different. Yep. Paul Needham. I'm a journalist with CP Research, specialised in logistics, express delivery. It's actually a question for Geodis. What would be interesting is, obviously, as Geodis, you have your own assets. You in France, you have a massive operation, and also in various European countries, you have your own assets. Yet, of course, you can't do everything yourself, especially with B2C. And I think you mentioned that you have to use local champions for the final mile deliveries. So how do you decide to, in terms of your operations, logistics, and especially the delivery side, how do you decide what to do yourself and what to give over to a partner? And to what extent is your new chartered air operation playing a role in all of this?
Okay.
The intercontinental one.
Take that back.
Thank you. So you probably rolled up 3 different products and questions into one. Let me go backwards. So Geodis' own aircraft, OCN, our charter flight, is actually catering to another product of e-commerce we have called Geodis My Parcel. So we have this flight doing Chicago, Amsterdam, and Hong Kong, Amsterdam on rotation 2-3 times a week each. And this product we have from US to Europe at a 4 to 6 day time-definite DDP door-to-door product. And My Parcel travels on our own aircraft. So our aircraft carries other cargo, but it primarily carries e-commerce volumes. Yeah, and there is actually no other DDP 4 to 6 day time-definite guaranteed service currently in the market. To your other point, in terms of choice of partners and selections for last mile, we actually only have our own network in France, which you recognized and mentioned. And that is also primarily for larger volumes, over 30 kilos, 1 cubic meter, etc., and not really the parcel network. So we are completely collaborating with as many partners in the market that we wish to. We are not limiting ourselves. We're not doing a shortlisting or selection. And we're also leaving it open to the brands that should the brand already have a relationship with an existing carrier, we are more than happy to work with that carrier on the relationship and add more capacity from our relationships. So it's a very flexible model. We don't try to impose ourselves on anyone. The idea of Geodis is to try and enable the customer experience, the eventual customer experience, and actually collaborate and partner with the brand in their choice of how this network should operate.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Any more questions? No? Everyone's looking forward to dinner. Okay. No problem. Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Ash. Really enjoyable chat today. And by all means, drop past. Well, you can't miss Geodis as you walk out. You'll trip over their stand. So drop by and hear more about what they're doing. And thank you both again. And thank you, everyone, for attending the very last session of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.